Back in my mining days, we used to travel to work, what we call the car crew. We'd all meet up at a certain place. There would be 3 or 4 of us, and we'd meet up at a certain place, and then we'd travel to work together. It was easy and it was safe. And obviously during that hour, you have a lot of time to talk. And your car crew mates generally become pretty close to you because you are with them a lot and you talk about things. Now, my buddy, who was my car crew mate, he was an ex-real estate agent, and he was mining because he got into some trouble and needed to get some cash. And as I said in previous videos, mining is that way that you can earn good money, reliable, steady, good money. So he used to tell me stories about some of his real estate adventures and some funny stories about clients and selling houses and how much money he was making. And it was good fun. And he also knew that I was always looking for a way to invest money. How can I make more money? So eventually he come to me with this plan. He's like, mate, I've got the perfect business, but I don't have the capital. But let me tell you about it. Maybe you want to come in with me. And I'm like, righto, let's hear your pitch. What do you got? And his idea was this: if you buy corner blocks, which are generally bigger blocks in estates, and if you sell them to Sydney people, and he kind of knew all the tax loopholes and how that he could sell it to these people because they could use it as a tax write-off, and he knew all the ins and outs. He knew everything. He said, all we need to do is start with one. If we buy a block of land, and he said, and with my connections, I know when they're coming up, and I know where I can get them from and how much we can get them for. So I was like, sounds pretty interesting. And he's like, after we flip 2 or 3 houses, 4 at the most, we'll be in profit, because you borrow for the first one, and then the second one you borrow it against the first one, and then the third one will pay off the first 2, then the fourth one you are actually in profit. And it sounded bizarre, but it sounded doable. And I was like, I can do the math on that. I see how you've come up with that. That sounds pretty good. How much are you talking? And he told me, if you invest $25,000, I invest $25,000, we buy this block of land for $50,000, we could get this done for about $150,000. So we would only have to borrow $100,000 against the company. We can do this. I know how to do it. And I said to him, yeah, okay, let's explore this a little bit deeper. I'm interested. So he did. He showed me all the paperwork and the plans and the business plan, everything. He showed it all to me. He's like, this is how we're going to do it. It's going to be great. And I said to him, what do you want from me? And he said, I don't want you for anything. You don't have to do anything. You just be an investor. And I thought to myself, yep, this is right up my alley. I don't have to do anything. You're a trustworthy guy. I've known you for a few years now. We're friendly. I'll call you my mate. In Australia, everybody's a mate, really. If you've talked to somebody for 5 minutes, he becomes a mate. So don't get caught up too much on the word mate. Everybody's a mate in Australia. Even if you don't know him, he's still old mate. But anyway, I'd known him for a little while. We were quite friendly. We travelled to work together for a year. Worked for about 3 years together. So, we knew each other quite well. And I trusted him. So I agreed to invest into his real estate venture. Now, I wasn't expecting any returns quick because, building houses, buying land, all the government red tape takes time. So it wasn't going to be a short turnaround. It wasn't going to be you will get your money back within 6 months. This was going to take a couple of years. And it was all laid out in the paperwork. I knew exactly what I was signing up for. So I agreed. I was in. And we would talk about it going to work. He'd give me updates. He'd be like, this is where we're at. This is what's happening. Looked at a few different plots of land. Everything's going great. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, mate. It's your business. I know. I'm just happy that you're giving me updates. So I didn't have any questions for him. I didn't need anything else. He was keeping me well informed. And then after about 6 months, nothing had seemed to progress. Like the conversation didn't move forward. He was still telling me, oh yeah, I've still got this block of land, or I found another one that I think is even better. And so then I started asking a few questions like, well, hang on, didn't you say like 6 months ago that you had this block of land and you're going through the sales? Oh yeah, that one fell through, and now I've found this one that's a bit better and a bit cheaper and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you start to question things a little bit more by now. You're like, it's not quite adding up. 2 and 2 is not quite adding up to 4 here. But again, you know what you're doing. So, okay. And this kind of went on for almost a year. It was like 11 months. Still hadn't bought any land. You start to get a little bit worried, but I didn't want to push him. It wasn't my business. I was just an investor. And he was still talking to me. He was still telling me everything that was going on, everything he was doing. But I was starting to go like, mate, what's happening here? Like, you haven't found a block of land for 12 months. And he kept telling me everything's all right, that, you know, soon. And that was about as far as it went. And then he started to tell me different stories. It wasn't about the business. It was more about his life, how his mother was sick, how his old real estate was suing him for breach of contract, or, you know, whatever it was, that he had to hire a lawyer, and then he started missing work, and he wouldn't ring and tell me that he wasn't coming. So I'd be at our meetup point and waiting around for him, and he wouldn't show, and I'd ring him, and then eventually he'd ring back and say, oh yeah, sorry man, I'm not coming today. And then next time I'd see him, maybe a week later, he would tell me, oh, I had to go to court. And then he would start telling me about all this money that he would have to pay on his barrister, that it was costing him like $10,000 every court appearance. But somehow the conversations always got steered around to his personal problems. And this went on where you'd be no shows at work, and then he'd tell me about all these problems that he'd have, and it was just a revolving cycle. And then he started not showing up more and more to work. And then I'd get to work and people would ask me, or the bosses would ask me, where's so-and-so? And I'm like, I don't know, man, he didn't show up at the pickup point. I guess he's not coming today, or he's just running late, I don't know. So eventually he got sacked because he wasn't showing up enough. And they just, you know, no company wants an employee that doesn't show up for work. You're bound to get sacked for that. And I'm starting to think, oh, this is just getting messy. Till eventually I just had to ask him, I'm like, mate, what's happening? Is this business going ahead? Is there anything happening here? And I kind of cornered him to the point where he had to tell me. He's like, look, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not going to happen? He's like, I've been telling you that it's cost me like $10,000 each time that I have to go to court, and I've had to go to court 5 times. And my mum's sick and she needs this medication, and, you know, I've lost my job now. He said, I've spent the money. I'm like, what do you mean you spent the money? He said, I've spent the money. I've had to pay for all these other things. And I said to him, you mean you spent my money? And he said, well, yeah, but don't worry, I'm going to pay you back. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds likely. When? He said, I don't know, but I will pay you back. I'm like, how are you going to pay me back? You don't have a job. He said, don't you worry about that. I'll pay you back. Well, another lesson learned in life. Even though there was a contract, you know, I could have probably sued him because I never got that money back. Never actually saw him again. Never heard from him again after that. I could have taken him to court. I could have sued him. But what was the point? Then I would have been paying for a lawyer and probably a barrister to get what back? He didn't have the money. So it would have cost me God knows how much money to try and chase it down. If it was like 250 grand, yeah, maybe. Well, probably not. Yeah, maybe. Then it would have been worth it. But for 25 grand to go and spend like 10 grand on a barrister to get 25 back, like, at the end of the day, all I could do was like write it off. Another failed adventure, another costly error, just another thing where I was trying to make money. So in the end, it cost me $25,000. I lost another friend, and I resigned to the fact that I was probably going to be a coal miner till I was 70. I was like, I'm only halfway into my mining career. I'm not going to retire early. I'm going to be here until I can't work any longer. I'm probably going to die a coal miner, and I'll probably die poor because I just have no idea about business. I have no idea about money. Nothing ever works for me. I'd resign to the fact that I was going to die a coal miner and I was probably going to die poor.